The Creator is directed by Gareth Edwards. First movie I saw of Gareth Edwards was Monsters from 2010, and that was around the time when he was announced to be helming 2014's Godzilla by Legendary Pictures. And then in 2016, he released Rogue One, which was a pretty greatly received prequel to A New Hope. Something that all those films have in common is Gareth Edwards' ability to create scope and basically how he's able to construct suspense and tension, and there's always like some sort of looming presence. So Monsters, you had the monsters. Godzilla, he gave us Legendary's Godzilla. And then in Rogue One, if you look at the Death Star, I mean, the Death Star is just a floating kaiju at that point, right? Every time it was on screen and it was going to blow something up, you felt its presence. And then that continues with the Creator. Without giving too much away, there's another destructive space station. It's called Nomad. But whenever it's on screen, you feel it. So I don't know if I just call him a kaiju filmmaker or what, but the way he's able to cultivate scope and spectacle, still going really, really strong. And that's honestly one of the strongest things about the Creator. I appreciate that with $80 million for a budget, Gareth Edwards is able to give us something that is just so visually stunning and it feels so massive. And when you compare it to its other blockbuster counterparts like superhero movies, you know, whatever franchise movies, you know, those are 100+ million for the budget. This one on 80 million, he makes the most out of it. And I think that alone deserves the recognition for this movie. Definitely want people to start supporting stuff like this more often. The more original IP that we get, even if the writing on it isn't as, you know, unique as I would like it to be, just being able to see stuff like this in the cinemas again brings me back to the early 2000s, mid 2000s, when you go to the movie store or go to the movie theater and it's like, oh, Reign of Fire, dragons attacking in a post-apocalyptic Earth. Okay, cool, let's check it out. Was the movie good? No, not really, but do we get like batshit crazy ideas and unique concepts like that? Not so much anymore because the money's not there, right? So I would much prefer us to be able to support stuff like this on a more constant basis so we get more content. I love content like this. The closest thing we get to this is just, you know, the few gems per year that we'll get on a streaming service like Hulu or Netflix. So what is a Creator about? Against the backdrop of a war between humans and robots with artificial intelligence, a former soldier finds a secret weapon, a robot in the form of a young child. And the first thing I want to say is the chemistry between John David Washington and the child. His character's name is Joshua and the child's name is Alfie. The way that they were able to put that dynamic together, I thought was pretty good. We've seen it done better in The Last of Us, things like that. Arguably Logan, right? You have that, you know, you have the adult with the kid dynamic traversing some sort of peril. I still thought it was done pretty well in this movie. The performances by the two leads I thought were great and convincing. Got a lot of emotional beats in there too. Sometimes you might think it feels a little manufactured, but that's up to debate. Me personally, it hit me while I was watching it. I was invested the whole time, so I thought that you could really give that to the direction and to those stars. I thought they did an excellent job. When it comes to side characters, I thought all the side characters that we got a little bit more of them on film a little bit. I thought they were done really well. In particular, you'd sometimes get introduced to an AI. You realize this AI has like its own characterization. If I were to break it down and analyze it, right, I'd be able to, I think, dissect character motivations and arcs with these characters that we see for like a minute on screen. Something that Gareth Edwards has been really good at least since Rogue One. In Rogue One, he really gave us some of the best side characters in a movie. Downside was the fact that I thought the two leads were kind of stale. No offense to Diego Luna or Felicity Jones. They're great actors and actresses, but in that movie in particular, I thought their characters were pretty weak. Extremely outshined by their side characters. Luckily for the Creator, we're able to have some strong lead characters, and we get those strong side characters as well. When it comes to the cinematography was done by Greg Fraser and Oren Sofer, and everything looked pretty incredible. In particular, Fraser has done cinematography for Dune 2021, Dune Part 2, and Batman 2022, which if you've seen any of those, the camera work is incredible in all of those as well. And it's the same thing here. Thought it was excellent. Reportedly, Edwards talked the studio into letting him film without green screen and filming on location using smaller cameras, using guerrilla style techniques, and then adding in sci-fi elements later. You really felt that when you were watching this movie. In particular, when they're in East Asia and there's just a lot of trees, plants, they're, you know, in this more jungle-like setting, you really feel the setting, whether it be bugs, the sound design when they're in the area, you really feel it. And I thought that reading this after watching the movie, it makes complete sense that this was the direction he took. I love the guerrilla style of filmmaking because it makes it more immersive and it makes everything feel more authentic. Because if you've noticed with other big blockbusters, when there's a lot of green screen, it takes you out of the experience. It's much easier to suspend disbelief when the setting itself looks phenomenal and it feels lived in. How was the AI portrayed? I thought it was portrayed really well. Yet again, it's stuff that we've kind of seen before, whether you played Detroit Become Human or you've seen other movies that deal with artificial intelligence like Ex Machina or even the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix. I thought that the designs were pretty unique. In particular, I loved the donate your likeness, because not only is that a subject of controversial conversation nowadays when it comes to performers and actors, actresses, etc. In context of the setting of the film, I thought that was pretty awesome. I thought it felt real. It was gritty enough where it felt like it could be us in however many years from now. That's my favorite kind of sci-fi, is where it has a little bit of that grit and realism to it, where you could kind of speculate whether something similar could happen in a few decades. Which, fun note, in one scene I was able to see that the character of Joshua was rocking white Air Force Ones. There was only one scene, and that was the one scene that maybe took me out of their setting, but I saw that and I was like, nice. There were some subtleties that I appreciated with the AI, like whenever they're reacting to something that maybe stresses them out a little bit, you see it in their face. Most of the AI, they have a face, right? But you could see their centrifugal ears rotating a certain way, a certain rhythm, whenever something is told to them and it's like something stressful or emotional, anxious, whatever. I caught that a few times in a couple of those more somber scenes. The human characters, not a lot of captivation there. John David Washington did a great job as Joshua. I thought that he had some pretty good character motivations. The villainous humans were kind of one note, but there were some parts where I kind of appreciated the fact that they were almost robotic in their intensity and their violence. I don't know if that was intentional or if it's just me making an excuse for them having one note human characters. Seeing how brutal they can be and careless, it at least made me immerse myself in the sense of, like, we have actual robots and then we have humans who are operating without emotional capacity. Therefore, like, what makes you any different than a robot, right? So I thought that was a cool thing to kind of pit them against each other like that, to see more of the emotional side taken and portrayed by the AI, while the humans were more the brutal, emotionless, like, yeah, we're getting shit done type thing. At the end of the movie, I walked out of there feeling pretty great. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I definitely want to see it again. Probably one of the top movies I've seen this year so far. I'm also just a big sci-fi nerd. You give me anything well done that's sci-fi, I'm going to be a little bit more biased towards it. So on a technical level, I thought it was pretty phenomenal, at least in the way that it was shot. The writing, probably the weakest part about it, and that's just because there are a few things in there that, you know, they play on tropes, they play on things that we've seen before. So naturally the writing is going to be the piece of it that I find to be the weakest, which, not saying it's entirely a bad thing, but if I had to choose something to, I guess, and honestly I would have liked to see a little bit more of this fleshed out world too. With the way that the plot proceeds through this movie, I would have loved to see a little bit more locations and concepts even of just how this world, the infrastructure of this world operates. That's coming from my sci-fi side. I read a lot of novels, a lot of sci-fi novels, so I'm always about the world building. But all in all, I thought this was a pretty great movie. I'm excited to see what Gareth Edwards does next. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and then have a great day.